say this out loud because it makes me laugh. So you can graduate from high school if you can show that you got accepted into a college after graduating from high school.
Yeah. Accepted into into a four-year institution.
Okay. How does this affect those classes that we had? I remember Deborah Cotner Davis doing a presentation on these classes that we had to have because for kids that didn't pass the Keystones, and then we couldn't have the classes that we should actually have. Does this help with that at all?
Yes, because we're not required to.
So now
do the project-based assessments.
Well, as long as they fit into one of these other odd categories that don't necessarily affect everyone.
Well, no, because they would affect everyone. So school districts are no longer required to offer PBAs at all because there's nobody to score them. So we don't have to do them anymore, and we should all be thankful for that because that was pure drudgery.
Yes.
So we do not have to do that. Nobody has to do that. And as a matter of fact, you can't do that because there's nobody to score.
So those classes now for next year won't exist anymore?
We don't have that class.
Because we were waiting, it was all in a hold stage.
There were students who, at that point, were required to do PBAs, project-based assessments. Those students were pulled and worked with particular teachers to get them through that. I don't know if maybe there's a confusion about the transitional courses that we were offering that we don't offer anymore.
Okay.
And that was in particularly in science.
Yes.
Right, integrated science. And we stopped doing that, and then I'm gonna share good news about the result of that, because what we did was we were having our special education students, and some students who just weren't performing, put into a class called integrated science that did not require the teaching of the standards based on that assessment. So we stopped doing that.
Because I remember us having that discussion that it's not worth it to do that based on these tests. And I think it was right around the time that the superintendent from Westchester had issued that letter to everyone saying, I don't care about the testing and I'm gonna do it this way. What about, so our there's still, I'm hearing kids that are taking the Keystones 3 times. Are we changing that process then? We're not going to make them keep retaking this test over and over?
They have to take it twice, and then for students with IEPs, that's different. And that's already laid out in our program of studies. So you do have to take that exam twice, unless you're opting out for religious reasons. So we have the spring, and that's when students take the exam. Then the students who don't pass that exam, we have them take it again in December. That's the second time that it's offered, in December. So what we're trying to do is better prepare that group of students to take the exam the second time, so you're done.
Well,
if they don't pass the exam, we have written into our program of studies already is that they can do 2 things. They have to pass the course associated with the exam, and then they have to do certain modules in Study Island and pass them, so that they can meet the graduation requirement. But as you can see, the graduation requirement is, it's not there.
When you say pass, are you saying basic or proficient?
Proficient.
Okay, but on option 1, the composite, you can have 2 basics and a proficient. So even if they get a basic, you're going to have them take it the second time?
No, when we can have option 1, you can have 2 basic and a proficient. I was just talking about what we currently have in our
What you're doing
systems.
now.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean any 2 basics and a proficient, it is a composite score.
It's a
So it depends on
composite.
how high your proficient is and how high your basic is. So it doesn't just mean you only need 1 proficient and you can pass with 2 basics, because it is a composite score, so they'll do some fancy math to make sure your number matches.
Okay.
So are students going to be required to take it the second time if they don't pass it the first time, or is it a choice?
They have to take it a second time. To my knowledge, I don't think they changed that. So you have to
So
take
that's
it the
not our
second
rule,
time.
that's a
That's
PDE
their
rule.
rule. That's PDE, and if they change that, I'll let you know.
What if they all of a sudden have a religious exemption between test 1 and test 2, does that work?
Convert.
Then it's a religious exemption and they don't take that.
So how are we preparing them? Are we preparing them outside of their classes? You said, you said in between, we're preparing them so they can so that they can take it in the fall.
The study island.
Right, so they are assigned modules. I'll talk more about that when I do the next presentation, but I'll just give you kind of an overview. So CDT's, Classroom Diagnostic Tools, and I think some of you may have heard that before. So what the state has done is they designed classroom diagnostic tools that mirror Keystone exams, right? So these are tests that you can take online. And what they do, they're diagnostic. So students take that exam in the beginning of the year so you can diagnose who knows what they need to know, and they move on, and you don't continue teaching things they already know. Then you know who hasn't acquired those skills. So then you can direct your instruction to meet those particular needs, which is what we started to do in bio, and we're seeing the results, which is why we're moving to lit and algebra. But I'll talk more about that in the next presentation. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for your patience with this.
Oh, well, this is a long time coming. They were a disaster before they ever did the graduation implementation. I mean, now they're coming around to what we've been telling them since they devised this thing. Now they're saying exactly what we were saying years ago, but at least they came around to saying it, so we'll be grateful for that.
Yes, I agree, and I think we all are, at least it's a respect for students.
Yeah, and I think maybe we can take the angst away from, even if they do have to take it the second time, at least we can. There are always other options. Yeah.
You're graduating.
Yay!
Yay!
Thank you now. Even McGarrigle?
McGarrigle, from Delaware, Tom
Delaware
McGarrigle.
Delaware County.
Because he's Pennsylvania,
Westchester.
Delaware.
Westchester.
McGarrigle.
There you go.
This is the right one.
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Small.
And you also have the next thing.
I do, so this time of year, and we've been waiting, because before I begin this, we've been talking about Future Ready Index, which is something new to the state. So what I wanted to do was to wait until all that came out to kind of talk about everything all at once, and talk about all the information that would be provided to us. What I'm going to do is walk through the PSSAs, the Keystones, the APs, the SAT, the ACT, as I typically do. And then at the end, I'm going to give you some information about how to navigate the Future Ready Index site that's public. All right. Thanks. All right, so that's what I'll do. I'll go through those exams. So this is the post-high school plans, which I generally show. I think this has been a slide that we've shown for a number of years straight. So we have 79% of our graduates from last year attending a 4 or 2-year college, and the year prior was 81%. We have other post-graduation training at 1%. Entering the military, we're at 5%. Last year we were at 4%. Entering the workforce, this year we're at 13%. Last year we were at 12%. And last year 1% other than this year we're at 2%. So it's not much of a difference. This is pretty consistent, this data. Our essay, this is a 3-year look at SAT statistics. So you can see in the area of reading, we've had an increase of 62 points over 3 years, and math an increase of 46. So we're making good gains with SAT. And I really would like to say, I think that's partially attributed to PCEF's boot camp for SAT. They run a boot camp, or Pennridge Community Ed Foundation.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know that, I just think it's probably one of the factors that's been helping us too. That's good news. Our ACT scores, not as many students take ACT, and we don't see it really statistically significant. Over 3 years, English is decreased by 0.3, math 1.4, reading 0.9 and science 0.6. So a little decrease in ACT while a pretty significant increase in SAT.
I'm sorry. Can we go back one slide?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know anything about participation in terms of percent of students who take the ACT and the SAT? I'm surprised by because we have fairly significant math SAT growth, but it's the largest decrease on ACTs. And I don't know whether that's because it's such a small percentage that, or whether there is something there to the types of students who are taking which exams.
I don't know if there's anything other there. There's definitely a lower percentage of students who take ACTs. Traditionally, the students are taking SATs, or they'll look at their college or university and see what the match is. Some students take both of those, and I think, Mrs. Herring, you talked about that. Some students are going to take both and see how well they do with
Well, most of the top flights are asking for both now.
But, okay, so that is not typical for our students. Some students do that. Most of our students are taking the SAT.
But we don't have any statistics on
Now, I know we have, I'm going to talk just a little bit about our AP, and I know Dr. Bolton will share some really good news. So 355 students took 645 AP exams. 82% of these students received a score of 3 or higher. This is what we've been working towards. The number of students taking AP exams increased by a margin of 28% from the prior year. So the percentage of students scoring 3 or higher really decreased only by 3.5%, but significantly more students took that exam. And what we really believe is that when we talk about college ready, taking an AP exam, whether or not you score a 4 or a 5, just by virtue of taking that exam, will help you become college ready, because you get to experience a college level course. So we're pleased with the increase in the number of students taking that exam. So we offer 21 AP courses. We did propose the AP capstone for next year, and we also are thinking for the following year offering at least 1, if not 2 more AP courses. So we're on the right track for AP, but I know we have other good news to share, and I'm going to leave that to Dr. Bolton.
Does your next slide have some of that information? I think that
Yes.
you should, right?
Oh, I'm
Because that just gives you a sense of where those advanced placement courses are. We just received in the mail about 3 hours ago. It was right before Ms. Chenoweth left at 5 o'clock. And so at some point she said, oh, look what came. And so we actually received the banners to announce, consistent with the email that I sent out today, that Pennridge has been named to the 9th Annual AP District Honor Roll. I am not in the habit of sending an email to the entire district. This is a big deal from an achievement and a recognition standpoint. It is the first time that Pennridge has been on this list. It is, and the information that was in my email, there are only 373 schools in all of North America, so that is the United States and Canada, who received this award. Only 46 out of the 500 schools in Pennsylvania received this award, and only 4 of the 13 schools in Bucks County. Now, what this really does speak to is it speaks to participation, both in general as well as underrepresented populations, and it speaks to performance. The performance has continued to be strong. 82% of our students scored a 3 or higher, and that is down slightly from the year before, but is still a significant number. Anything above 70 meets the threshold. There doesn't need to be an increase, you just have to be above 70, which is what they say is proficient for this number. The 28% increase in participation is huge. They look for 4% increase to honor you with this award, and Pennridge was at 28%. And so, although I take no credit for it, obviously, I do want to trumpet it and congratulate the students and the parents and the counselors and the teachers who encouraged that many more students to take that. And so from that standpoint, that is huge, as well as underrepresented populations. The advanced placement looks every year at any underrepresented population, and how they define that is any population where fewer than 50% of the students choose to take the test. So if you've got 300 students that are of a minority group sitting nationwide and fewer than 150 take that, they become underrepresented. They're trying to encourage participation rates that are similar across all demographics. In Pennridge, our numbers either stayed the same or increased in every one of those groups that we have. We don't have them all. I think there are 19 underrepresented groups, and I think we have 6 or 7 of them. But in all of those groups, our participation, our achievement stayed high, and our participation either stayed the same or increased, which is the third piece of this. And so it just really is a celebration of our students doing a really wonderful job, but also having more students and a diverse group of students being involved in this, which is why I want to take every opportunity that I can to celebrate that and to thank the teachers and the counselors and the administration and the curriculum folk and the parents and the students who work their tails off to do that well for that honor. So I just wanted to put a little oomph behind that. I know you got my email and I repeated many things, but it is something to be very excited about from a performance standpoint for the district. So.
Thank you, Dr. Bolton. We are very excited.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but, the percentage with the 3-year higher is slightly lower, but, this year was May of 18 was the first year that we had our 10th grade AP physics, right? That was the first year for that class, and those kids had a heck of a time, and they stuck with it and took the test, so, they should be commended. And then was comp sci 9th grade also the first year last year, or did we have that the year before? It was the second year maybe? Okay, but, so I think, those 10th graders with the AP physics, I think that could account for some of it, but they,
That was a struggle.
it
And the
was,
students who went through and did that, they should be applauded.
Yeah.
And thank Mrs. Cullen. Yes, that was one, good for them.
yeah.
So we're gonna talk about Keystone. So we have 3 years worth of data for our lit, algebra, for the high school, for the middle school, and then our bio. So they're relatively consistent. Our numbers across the board are consistent. You'll see that with Keystones and PSSAs. So it's a slight dip over 3 years in lit, a slight increase over 3 years in middle school, about 8% for algebra 1 for the middle school, an increase by, 2% over 3 years for algebra in high school, and an increase of 4% for bio. So, as you can see, the high school students, there's far less students taking that as well.
Can you just back up for a second?
Yeah.
There were some major changes, right, that you had made that encouraged the participation in the AP testing, right, from last year?
We did. We have been doing that. Philosophically, like I said, we really believe that it does help students become college ready. If you just by virtue of taking that risk and taking that class, even though you may not get the A in that class, the experience itself would be a benefit. And that's what all the departments have been talking about, and the teachers have been talking about, and Mr. Japutli and the supervisors. I mean, but that is what we have been saying. And we've heard that from the board. We've heard that from you. We've heard that from the community about the AP courses. And so that was the response, and it was an overwhelming response that we could see from the students.
And didn't we used to require them to take finals in addition to the AP, and now didn't we change that?
We did adjust that.
And so that was a big change too, because then they didn't have to take both classes, it was incentivizing taking the AP.
We did that last, I'm trying to get the specifics on.
I know we talked about it, but I wasn't sure if it ever got changed. And
Not
when I
as
saw the
class
big
2018.
increase, I thought maybe we
Not
did.
the class of
No.
2018.
No, what we changed is the exemption from finals, the grading structure and the exemption from finals overall. We haven't addressed whether you're taking the AP test or not. We've addressed it in conversation, but we haven't made a final recommendation or decision.
In making it part of procedure.
Right.
So that may be something that would also increase that even more,
It'd be
right?
a nice
Right,
little,
exactly.
So I think when you look at the fact that 24% of our students may not have taken that without the additional encouragement, and they did well on it, and now they're getting that college credit for it, I think that's awesome.
Well, they don't automatically get college credit.
No.
Well,
Remember
it
that,
depends who
right?
you're going to,
It
where you're
depends on
going.
what you're taking and where you're going, exactly.
yeah.
So that can be a discouraging
Yeah.
factor, actually.
It could be. But they're taking it anyway, which is, I guess,
And
the
that's great,
current-
I
right.
mean, but
Yes.
But it
great,
isn't an
and that's
automatic. you get a 3 and you get credit. Depends on which college you're going to and which course you're in.
Okay. So now, for after each Keystone and PSSA, we broke it down by program, just to give you an idea. So if you take a look for the proficient and advanced scores for the literature Keystone, and they're broken down by category, so free and reduced lunch, gifted. Limited English proficiency, so students, English is their second language. Section 504, it's such a minimal number, and the number of students in that population, and we didn't see much significance there anyway. Special ed, and then a total of general ed. So you can see that gifted ranges from 98% to 100%. So it's pretty consistent for our gifted students for proficient and advanced, and you'd expect that. Our limited English proficiency scores are really very high. And when you look through the Future Ready Index, all of our schools who had the N number, the number of students that you could get credit for, all of us, every school made the goal, reached the goal. So we're doing a really nice job in that regard. The special education students did drop just let's see, yeah, 4% there. And then overall, we're still remaining in the 70 range. We don't want to stay in the 70 range, I just need to tell you, even though these look very consistent. And if you look across the state, now we don't know what the county scores look like overall yet, because they're not public yet, so we don't know what they are. So I can't give you the comparison like I have, where I would rank our elementary and our secondary. I can't do that yet, because the scores, these aren't public yet. Future Ready Index and whatnot. You can go through Future Ready Index, but the actual scores aren't coming out until the end of December. So while these are consistent and we have remained in the 70s, our goal is to really move us at least we push towards the 80s and hopefully like towards the low 90s, because we believe we can do that.
Do you think there is a contributing factor to have it drop? I think that was 77 last year to 72, 5% in the gen ed, and do you think there was any factors in there that made it drop that much? Because you were almost at 80%, and now you're back.
Right, we almost were, and we did identify one of the major areas that we're working on, because I'm showing you these overall scores, but we actually get data on the modules and on the standards and the skills. So we can see where we're doing really, really well, and we can see where we really need some work. And one of the areas, and it's consistent across all grade levels, no matter what we're doing, is vocabulary development. And that is why, hence Words Their Way and vocabulary and the new reading program. I mean, really, we need to have students be reading right
You
away.
know what we need to do? Tell the Cullen children, all in college, they have to read the dictionary like their mother
Oh, okay, we'll add that.
did. Only those two, three.
All right, we'll pull that out.
special request? That's my special request. Read the dictionary is great.
So as we know, most of our 60% of the students in Pennridge take algebra in middle school. So there's where your pretty high performing kids are taking algebra. And they're pretty consistent too. You know, the gifted are still 98 range. We increased the LEP over the 3-year period by 7%, but there was a drop from one year to the next. And special education, as you can see, that was a really high number at 97%. But we're still, in terms of special education students, we still are doing a good job. We do see that what we're implementing is working, and I'll talk more about that because it's broad across all 3 subject areas. So we're remaining steady in algebra at about, in the low 80s. And again, they're consistent, but we know that we need to improve, and we expect to. Okay, so this is the high school. I do want to note, in particular, the gifted, because you saw 100%, 100%, and 63. So I had to go look at the number for that. I'm like, wait a minute. because that's pretty significant, and I didn't really see significance in other places. So, excuse me, for the last 2 years, 1 student. And last year, 8 students. So it was the number of students, because that was significant, going from 100 to 63%. And our LEP students, you know, we need to work there. We do. We have some work to do there. And our section 504, we were talking about 5, 6 kids, so statistically speaking, that's not something that we're upset about. Of course, we pay attention to that because they require certain accommodations as well. And you see special education inching 13, 14 to 16%, excuse me, and then we have 38, 33, 34% of our high school students who are proficient and or advanced, and we're working on that, in particular in algebra. So I'm going to share with you what our plan is for math. I have it on the slide after we're finished the Keystone, so I'll share that with you. And then we have our bio, and our science scores across in this district are strong, across all of them, the PSSAs and the Keystone. So you see again, with the gifted students, we're ranging 98 to 100%. Our limited English proficiency did decrease from last year, so we are developing a strong LEP program. I do expect those scores to go up. They should be increasing, and we also will be introducing that course for students, for LEP students in science next year. So we are addressing it in that way. We did make gains in special education, and I want to talk about why. So the lit exam score showed a slight decrease of 4%. However, the gifted population had a slight increase of 2%. This is just a general summary. Special education student scores actually decrease, as is the overall education, general ed population. And in the area of literature, in the area of reading, writing, in the area of literacy, that is really where we're putting our emphasis. You can see we come to every meeting and talk about strengthening our elementary program into the middle school, and then at secondary, so middle and high school. The Algebra 1 exam scores it indicates an overall improvement of 5% of proficient and advanced students from last year. So our overall was 72.6 last year, and we're at 77.7 this year. Now the bio exam scores increased by 4%. There was a significant improvement in special education. There's 159 students